Hi, it's Steve. Today we're going to show you how to change the bake element on your range, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a 1/4-inch nut driver and maybe a pair of needle nose pliers. Let me show you how we do it. Now, to do this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is to disconnect power to the range. So either pull it forward enough that we can pull the plug, or locate the breaker or fuse panel and turn the power off there. Now, I also find it easier to access that element if we remove the door completely. And on this model, there are a couple of little latches that hold the hinge in an open position. So simply pull those down, and you may need a small flat blade screwdriver to just catch the edge of them. Once you've laid those down, you can then put the door up into the broil position and then lift it off and just set it aside. Now next we'll remove any of the racks that will be in the way. So just pull those out, and again we'll just set them aside. So we'll start by removing the 2 retaining screws on the back wall. Use either a 1/4-inch nut driver, or for this model you can use a number 1 square head screwdriver. So remove the 2 screws and retain those. I'm going to carefully pull that element out of the openings at the back, taking caution when we start to see the wires that are attached to it. Make sure that we don't chafe those wires against the opening, and there should be enough length there to allow us to pull it far enough forward. We can actually disconnect the wire terminal and make sure that they don't go back through the opening into the rear of the range. We'll discard the old element. When installing the new one, we'll want to make sure that the legs that rest on are pointing down. And then we'll reattach the wire terminals. Before we do so, we'll inspect those and make sure that they're not corroded or arced. And if so, they'll need to be replaced. And make sure they fit nice and tight on the terminals on the element. And if not, take your needle nose pliers and just give them a little crimp first. Now, once we've got both terminals attached, we're going to carefully feed the ends of that element back through those openings. Next, we'll push that element tight against the back wall, line up the opening with the screw hole, and tighten up that mounting screw. Do the same on the opposite side. Now, if by some chance one of the wires is retracted into that opening, we will show you how to access that from the back as well. Now, to gain access to the wire terminals for the bake element, you will need to remove this lower back panel. So there are 3 screws on either side and then 1 in the center at the top. Now, with that last screw removed, we can then just lift up gently on the bottom of that back panel to release a couple of tabs, and then lower the panel down. And that will give us access to the 2 wires that go to that bake element, and we can reattach them if they had come off from the inside. And we can then put the back panel back on. Now, to do so, there are 2 little tabs that protrude from the bottom of the base here, and they're going to hook over that lip on the bottom of the back panel. So what we'll do is we'll tuck that top of the back panel in behind the upper back panel, and then in the location where those 2 tabs are, we'll just lift up on that bottom of the lower panel and set it into those 2 spots. And then we can go ahead and put the screws in. And make sure that the element sits flat, and if it doesn't, just gently give it a little bend so that the legs rest on the floor of the oven. And again, use caution when bending that element. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. And then we'll reinstall the racks. We'll next put the door back on. Just line up both of those hinges in the openings. And make sure that they sit down flush. Open the door completely. Lift up on the locks to the full vertical position. You can close that door up. We're now ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.